Juneteenth is a holiday celebrating the emancipation of African Americans who had been enslaved in the United States. Originating in Galveston, Texas, it is now celebrated annually on June 19 throughout the United States, with increasing official recognition, becoming a federal holiday in 2021. It is commemorated on the anniversary date of the June 19, 1865, announcement of General Order No. 3 by Union Army General Gordon Granger, proclaiming freedom from slavery in Texas. President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation of 1862 had officially outlawed slavery in Texas and the other states that had rebelled against the Union almost 2.5 years earlier. Enforcement of the proclamation generally relied on the advance of Union troops. Texas, as the most remote of the slave states, had seen an expansion of slavery and had a low presence of Union troops as the American Civil War ended. Thus enforcement there had been slow and inconsistent prior to Granger's announcement. Although the Emancipation Proclamation declared an end to slavery in the Confederate States, slavery was still legal and practiced in two Union border states, Delaware and Kentucky, until December 6, 1865, when ratification of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished chattel slavery nationwide. Additionally, Indian territories that had sided with the Confederacy, namely the Choctaw, were the last to release those enslaved. In 1866, celebrations date to 1866. At first involving church-centered community gatherings in Texas, it spread across the South and became more commercialized in the 1920s and 1930s, often centering on a food festival. During the civil rights movement of the 1960s, it was eclipsed by the struggle for post-war civil rights, but grew in popularity again in the 1970s with a focus on African American freedom and arts. As of 2021, North Dakota and South Dakota are the only states that do not recognize Juneteenth. According to the Congressional Research Service, modern observance is primarily in local celebrations. Traditions include public readings of the Emancipation Proclamation, singing traditional songs such as Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and Lift Every Voice and Sing, and reading of works by noted African American writers, such as Ralph Ellison and Maya Angelou. Celebrations include rodeos, street fairs, cookouts, family reunions, park parties, historical reenactments, and Miss Juneteenth contests. Juneteenth is also celebrated by the Mascogos, descendants of black Seminoles who escaped from U.S. slavery in 1852 and settled in Coahuila, Mexico. During the American Civil War, emancipation came at different times to various places in the southern United States. Celebrations of emancipation, often called a jubilee, occurred on September 22, July 4, August 1, April 6, and November 1, among other dates. In Texas, emancipation came late, enforced in Texas on June 19, 1865. As the Southern Rebellion collapsed, emancipation became a well-known cause of celebration. President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on September 22, 1862. It became effective on January 1, 1863, declaring that all enslaved persons in the Confederate States of America in rebellion and not in Union hands were freed. More isolated geographically, planters and other slaveholders had migrated into Texas from eastern states to escape the fighting, and many brought enslaved people with them, increasing by the thousands the enslaved population in the state at the end of the Civil War. Although most lived in rural areas, more than 1,000 resided in both Galveston and Houston by 1860, with several hundred in other large towns. By 1865, there were an estimated 250,000 enslaved people in Texas. Despite the surrender of General Robert A. Lee at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865, the Western Army of the Trans-Mississippi did not surrender until June 2. On the morning of Monday, June 19, 1865, Union Major General Gordon Granger arrived on the island of Galveston, Texas, to take command of the more than 2,000 federal troops recently landed in the Department of Texas to enforce the emancipation of its slaves and oversee a peaceful transition of power. Additionally, nullifying all laws passed within Texas during the war by Confederate lawmakers. The Texas Historical Commission and Galveston Historical Foundation report that Granger's men marched throughout Galveston reading General Order No. 3 first at Union Army Headquarters at the Osterman Building in the Strand Historic District. Next they marched to the 1861 Customs House and Courthouse before finally marching to the Negro Church on Broadway, since renamed Reedy Chapel AIM Church. The order informed all Texans that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves were free. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute